Close Encounters of the Third Kind was released in November 1977 in the wake of significant social and cultural upheaval, which included the Watergate scandal, the shootings of unarmed students at Kent State by the National Guard, the assassinations of the Kennedys and Martin Luther King Jr., and wide-scale Vietnam War protests. Coming off the immense success of Jaws, Spielberg, a member of the new Hollywood wave of directors, wrote and directed Close Encounters, a critical and box office hit which earned him his first Best Director nod. If there is a theme which defines Spielberg's early films, it is extraordinary characters up against the extraordinary. Set in Indiana, the narrative follows the protagonist, Roy Neary, played by Richard Dreyfuss. He is a father and husband, a blue-collar, affable everyman who finds himself confronted with the extraordinary when he witnesses firsthand an unidentified flying object, a UFO. Not set in the future or a long time ago in a galaxy far away, Close Encounters is grounded firmly in mid-1970s American culture. A contemporary science fiction film set in Middle America which contains many sci-fi tropes or semantics. The film is bookended with scenes of time and space travel, and spaceships dominate the narrative and are seen in a variety of sizes, but never as threatening. The aliens which appear at the film's conclusion are nonviolent and benign, not the murderous monsters seen in films like Alien. These extraterrestrials are more saviors than savages. Most central to the film, however, is the disturbance of the natural order. After Roy first sees the UFO, he becomes obsessed with an image which he can't explain, a tower. From then on, his family life is turned upside down as his suburban existence is dismantled.
Migraines? Yeah. Irritation des yeux et du sinus? An irritation in your eyes and your sinuses? Yeah. Des démangeaisons, des allergies? You have hives? You have allergies? Des brûlures sur le visage et sur le corps? You're burning on your face and on your body? Yes. Who are you people? Look at this. Yeah, I got one just like in my living room. Who are you people? Monsieur Neary, please, one more question. N'avez-vous pas fait récemment une rencontre? Have you recently had a close encounter? Une rencontre plutôt inhabituelle? Close encounter with something very unusual. Who are you people?
Close Encounters' ideology must be considered in context. Made in the wake of scandals like Watergate and the Pentagon Papers, which led many Americans, including Spielberg, to reject Republican doctrine, the film has a liberal skepticism. However, as seen in the clip, that distrust today would be more characteristic of the far-right or neoconservative movements. Metaphors abound in Close Encounters, from overt to interpretive. As an electrical lineman, Roy deals with the disturbance of a public utility, which mirrors the disturbance in the natural order. Aliens are symbols for gods and light as divine intervention. Lights from above beam down on his truck, and with them, his vision and enlightenment. And of course, that tone, music as language, a universal means to communicate. Religious iconography such as omniscient lights from the sky, compelling visions, Roy's Messiah-like posture in his deliverance to the unknown are all evidence of religious allegory. Women as wives and mothers, men as breadwinners and in positions of authority. Close Encounters supports very traditional gender roles of the 1970s. Every scientist represented is male and white, but more on that later. And women are positioned to refract and support the male narrative. Roy's relationship with Ronnie, his wife, is companionable but not passionate. When he meets Jillian, who also sees visions of the tower, their bond is immediate, but their relationship remains platonic. The aliens, presumably more evolved, are represented as gender neutral, their sexuality completely ambiguous. There can be no doubt, Close Encounters is a movie about white people, and subtle racism is built into every one of the 3 scenes in which people of color appear. These representations, though fleeting, position non-whites as subordinates to their white superiors. The photos on the left depict this unbalanced relationship. In each instance, the white characters feel entitled to touch the non-white person, though unsolicited. An elderly Hispanic man is examined by scientists. They touch his face without first asking permission. A black air traffic controller who calmly and effectively deals with a possible mid-air collision is surrounded by white figures looming from above. One rests a hand on his shoulder. In the lower left, an elderly Indian man is helped up a mountain in service to the all-white research team. While the gestures are gentle, they nonetheless reinforce dominance over the ethnic other. On the right, hegemony is evident in mise-en-scène shots which establish white Western superiority. The brightly lit Coke sign amid Mexican squalor, the American-made Jeep framed with a broken-down horse cart, and the Indian leader set apart from his followers in his Western-style suit. Terry Garr, who plays Roy's beleaguered wife, asked Spielberg, "Is it because this is a science fiction movie that we're living this way?" He replied, "No, this is the way I grew up. You're living my life." The yelling, the screaming, the mashed potatoes, the television on 24 hours a day, the radio, the vacuum cleaner, the kids, and the block parties, all that tradition. As Roy literally dismantles his idyllic suburban home, uprooting his domestic toehold, his neighbors are seen maintaining their version of the American dream. A family washes their boat in the background. Another rakes. Richard Dreyfuss, who plays Roy, said that Spielberg had a love affair with the suburban middle class, that he thought it was endlessly fascinating. For Spielberg, this representation of middle-class America was personal. Growing up Jewish and artistic in an affluent Arizona suburb, he was often made to feel outside the community. As a suburban auteur, he positions the on-screen representation of normal in opposition of Roy's vision. Domesticity is therefore contrary to spirituality and creativity. Having evaded the governmental forces which tried to bar them from Devil's Tower, Roy and Gillian climb to the top and discover the immense operation going on below. Watch the night sky closely. Tiny white lights move and configure themselves in the shape of familiar constellation, the Big Dipper. Presumably they are spaceships, but couldn't they just as easily be some kind of artificial intelligence? Certainly this is an act of détente and demonstrates not only the intelligence of the alien species, but a sense of humor as well. Then, one by one, slowly, 3 Sentinel ships come into frame. But they don't move like spaceships. They move more like organic beings. They don't look like spaceships either. They have 2 blue lights that resemble eyes, and lights where ears would be, and rows of orange lights below that look like teeth. Like the March Hare late for an appointment, a whimsical little illuminated red dot follows. Are they spaceships or are they sentient beings? Spielberg leaves it up to us to decide. Spielberg then juxtaposes our rudimentary transhuman adaptations with an immense display of equipment and hardware. Eyeglasses, headsets, keyboards, and speakers showcase the technological differences in our species. In a pivotal earlier scene, Roy rips off his face mask, convinced the anthrax threat was a ruse. At first, though well-equipped, our awkward human attempts at communication through amplified light and sound fail. At the end of the runway, the 3 sentinel ships, or representations of artificial intelligence, hover patiently, looking like neon clown faces. Spielberg may have wished to keep his thoughts on the nature of the aliens ambiguous, but there can be no doubt their anthropomorphic appearance either indicates intelligence or was an attempt to make them less threatening. Either way, it was intentional. As a standalone film, the canon of Close Encounters is not a matter of controversy. However, before the release of the director's cut for the 40th anniversary, there were 2 different versions of the ending, which stirred debate among fans. Over 40 years after its release, Close Encounters continues to have lasting cultural impact. Tropes popularized in the film are still in use today. Bright lights and electrical disturbances to indicate otherworldly presence, and specifically the depiction of aliens designed by Carlo Rambaldi, which have become the default representation of kind or benevolent extraterrestrials. The photo on the upper left is from The X-Files, produced 20 years after Close Encounters. In the wake of the film's release, park attendance went up 50% at Devil's Tower and never went back to its pre-1977 attendance numbers. And can any parody be complete without Mad Magazine or The Simpsons? Even the Muppets created mashed potato sculptures. The bottom photo is a still from a Close Encounters spoof on the Donnie and Marie Osmond variety show with special guest Ron Howard. And of course, John Williams' 5-note tone. An earworm which has been fixed in our pop culture soundtrack, second only in recognition to his 2-note musical motif from Jaws. Ranked among numerous lists of superlatives, winner of 2 Academy Awards, and recognized by Congress as culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant, Close Encounters remains relevant today, not because of its groundbreaking use of special effects or for launching a vast transmedia empire, but for forefronting human relations and their frailties, and for expertly depicting ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances.